All right, well, it's already week 3 of training camp here at AT&T Training Camp here in Flowery Branch. Taylor, Vismor, Dave Archer. Week 2 of preseason, though, but we were just talking. It's only been 3 weeks, but it feels a little bit longer, but it feels kind of fast. I don't know. How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, I feel good. I think that we're trending in the right direction, but it does feel like some of it's gone slow, some of it's gone fast, certainly getting through the preseason games. Now I think things, Taylor, will ramp up from a speed standpoint. Seems like you'll blink, and the next thing you know, it'll be the week of the Steelers.
Yeah, so, I mean, last week, obviously, the Falcons were down in Miami. I was there. Thank you for doing the show without me. Missed you guys. Glad to be back at the table this week.
We struggled.
No, you did not. You did a great job without me, but you were down there for the call. So let's kind of just briefly recap it. I know it was a preseason game, but what did you see in this team in that game, and Raheem Morris making kind of his 2024 head coaching debut, if you will, from that game in Miami?
I think it obviously was a sloppy football game. I think that by all rights, when you don't execute on third down, we have a tough time running the football, and then the other team runs the ball on you. I think there's some things that probably sloppiness comes into play. There were some penalties, pre-snap penalties. You want to try to eliminate that kind of stuff. But all in all, there were some guys that stepped forward. And this was a game, Taylor, and we talked about it. This was a game for guys that are in that middle part of the roster, back in the roster. There's a couple of guys that are future guys like Michael Penix. You're looking for those guys to flash and show up. And we had a number of guys flash in this game. Albeit the team part of it didn't necessarily look great, we did have guys flash who are going to be part of this team.
Let's talk about the guys that flash really fast. You brought up Michael Penix Jr. I know that Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot were kind of forthright after they drafted him and said, look, Kirk Cousins is still our QB1. And so we're probably going to be seeing Michael Penix in these 3 preseason games. And he did very well in that quarter and a half, if you will, against Miami. What did you see out of Michael Penix?
Well, the poise comes out immediately. He was in control the entire time. I never saw him panicked. He looked very comfortable. He was quick and decisive with getting the ball out. Down in distance situations, he understood where he needed to go with the football to keep the chains moving. I thought all the things you're looking for from a quarterback came to display. The arm strength is there. His subtle movement within the pocket to feel that. All the things that you saw probably when you went out and watched him in Washington, as Raheem did with Terry Fontenot and the whole staff. They went out there a couple times. I think that all came to life certainly in the game.
And we were talking about this earlier before we went out to practice today about the ability to come in as a rookie, and some rookies have to come in as a quarterback and start right away, and the development process of those rookie quarterbacks at a 20 years old or a 21, 22 sometimes, and for Michael Penix, he is a little bit older. But let's talk about that for a second, the developmental process for a rookie quarterback and how great of an opportunity this is for Michael Penix to play in these preseason games and then continue learning in the regular season. How important is that for his development?
Yeah, I think it's huge. We don't get to see it very often. Like you said, you draft a kid that high or a guy that high, then he's going to be expected to play right away. We saw it back in 2008 when Matt Ryan came here and immediately stepped in. I think there's temperaments for guys that they can handle that and some that can't, some that have been destroyed by things not going well early on. You and I discussed this, and I think anybody that when you start to evaluate the quarterback position, there are so many variables that are attached to playing quarterback. Not just the stuff that goes on the field and processing from snap to snap, or what you see pre-snap and then what you do after the ball's in your hands. How about all the stuff from Monday to Saturday that you deal with, from a media standpoint to expectation standpoint? All those kind of things fall into the lap of a guy that was drafted 8th overall by Michael Penix. The thing that really comes out that you and I have noticed is his ability to stay calm. He's very poised. He's very mature. He understands the situation. And one of the great, if you will, wild cards he's got in his pocket is Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is as polished a guy and as a knowledgeable guy and as thoughtful a guy as you could possibly have as your quarterback. And Michael Penix is sitting there listening to this guy talk, listening to this guy in meetings, being on the field with this guy. It's the perfect scenario for Penix to ultimately become the quarterback here.
Let me talk about the guys that he is throwing to. Like we said, I think it's been pretty obvious since they got drafted together, they went through OTAs and now training camp, that he and Casey Washington have something special. And we talked about it earlier about how fun it is to have a quarterback and a wide receiver come in together, grow together. But let's talk about Casey on this main roster. if he has an opportunity to be a receiver for Kirk Cousins in the regular season. What did you see in that Miami game with him and Penix that gives the case to Kirk Cousins for him to be a wide receiver?
Well, as a quarterback, I got to know that the guy's going to be where I'm expecting him to be. And I know that's a simple concept, but the very first pass he throws is a conversion type pass where he's got Casey right there. Casey finds the hole in the zone, he puts it on him, move the chains. That's the number one thing when you start developing a chemistry with a player or with a receiver is I got to be able to trust you.
Yeah.
I got to know that you're going to be where you're supposed to be. Casey's been that. I think Casey's poured himself into the playbook. Remember, Casey's probably thinking when he got here, okay, I was drafted late in the draft. I don't have a ton of numbers to throw at you as a wide receiver coming out of Illinois, but I've got some skills.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to show it to you, but in the meantime, I got to be a special teams guy. And he showed up on special teams in this game too. So his ability to blend those two, understand the importance of what his role might be right now and what it might blossom to with maybe his connection with Michael Penix.
Yeah, let's kind of flip the ball. Let's flip to the other side of the ball, if you will, really fast. Donovan Mutin had a huge game as well. And then Kevin King had the only interception of the game for the Falcons. He hasn't played in 2 years, comes out and gets an interception on his first game back. Looking at those guys on defense, because we kind of already know who the starters are going to be on the defense, but what are these plug-and-play guys going to be able to do for this roster?
Well, it's a great story. Kevin King's a great story. If you don't know Kevin King's story, stepped away from the game in 22 for some personal reasons. 23 came back, tore his Achilles tendon. He hasn't played football in 2 years, as Taylor talked about. This is a guy in 2019 that had over 60 tackles and 5 interceptions as a starting corner for the Green Bay Packers. This guy can play, but he had to go prove that he could still play because of the time off. He did that. I thought he was involved in an interception, as you mentioned. He got his hands on another ball, and I think he even stripped one out, caused a fumble. So that was cool to see. But it also validates, and I don't know if Terry Fontenot needs any validation or the scouting staff needs any validation, but the guy that makes the first play on the screen in the flat against Miami is Antonio Hamilton, a veteran player they went out and signed who read the play, made the play. First turnover of the game is a veteran player they went out and got and took a gamble on, and Kevin King, guy comes in here and makes a play. It just validates what you're doing, that the guys fit what they're supposed to do, and that they can step up for you. So I think that there's a number of guys. Contavious Street, a guy we got in the middle of the season last year, that Contavious flashed. Harrison, the big guy out of Ohio State, I think that he's had to slide. He had to put some weight on, slid to a little bit different position. He shows up last night. In fact, he had the pressure that created the play where King gets the interception. So there's a number of guys like that are stepping out. How about Dane Cruikshank? You talk about it. We lost a safety in the game. DeMarco Helms got hurt in the game. Cruikshank is a guy that had 2 monster hits in the game on special teams and had a couple big plays on defense. These are guys that they're a veteran player. He played at Arizona. He's a guy that is ready to step in and play.
Yeah, you bring up DeMarco Hellens. I kind of want to talk about the injuries that happened on Friday night in Miami with the whole team, just the whole week, really. Rondale Moore obviously went down during practice. He was placed on IR with a knee injury. Braylon Trice, the rookie, coming in off of, I think we drafted him third in the third round. He's placed on IR with a knee injury. Harrison Hand on IR with a knee injury as well. DeMarco Hellens was not placed on IR. Head coach Raheem Morris said that he will be out for a significant amount of time for his ankle injury. And I spoke to Tori McElhaney and a couple of our other writers on our editorial team, and they said, I kind of think that's almost a good sign that he wasn't placed on IR. Yeah, it's going to be a significant amount of time, but that doesn't mean that he's out for the whole season. He might not even, we don't know what exactly happened with the ankle, but he could be out, until week 8, week 9. We don't know quite yet. But hearing that he wasn't placed on IR, but just a significant amount of time, what does that kind of do for you?
Well, it tells me that they feel like it's obviously, it wasn't as severe as we first thought. I mean, air casts and all those kind of things you see on the field, you think, oh no, it's a tibia or something, like he's broken a bone in his leg, maybe his ankle, and maybe there may be a little bit of that going on, but it's not as severe enough to put him on an injured reserve. Right. Now they can carry him to the regular season, and once they get to the regular season, then they can put him on short-term IR, which can be that 6 to 8 week program where he gets back and he can contribute late in the season. This is a guy that flashed, ironically enough, in the Miami game a year ago where he had an interception. He flashed as a 7th round draft pick. Next thing you know, he's playing more and more, and by the end of the season he was starting. Yeah. So this is a guy And why is he in the game? Because of that. He played some in the season, but this is a guy they wanted to get ramp up and get up to speed. And I know that's another conversation maybe for another day as to why and how you play guys. And I know Raheem's got his ideas about how that's supposed to go down.
Yeah, and Raheem Morris actually spoke to media earlier in the week discussing why he decided to play DeMarco Hellams and what he really thinks of preseason.
I don't want to play in the games. I really don't. And you got to play some of the guys. You play your first year outside backer to give them just a little bit of game repetition, right? And all the guys with some real playing experience, you don't really want to play. And, you had DeMarco out there, was played a half a season of what it was last year. So you just want to get him a little bit of rep, kind of like you got with Richie. And, you always look back, and anytime a guy gets hurt, you want to blame yourself. So I definitely take full responsibility for that when our guys get hurt in preseason games. And that guy definitely doesn't change anything. It just kind of further tells how I feel about the preseason.
All right, he was pretty forthright with how he feels about the preseason. And I feel like a lot of coaches and support staff in the NFL kind of feel that way about the preseason, but it didn't always used to be that way in the NFL. Let me ask you this, as a former player and someone that's been in the league and around it for so long, when did that change and that shift for the NFL from the preseason really being a big deal to maybe not so much?
Yeah, I think that it's been a while since you felt like maybe the preseason was a little bit of waste. There's been conversation about shortening the preseason. Obviously, we went from 4 to 3. Now there's conversation from going from 3 to 2 and maybe an additional regular season game. I'm not sure exactly when that was. There was a time where training camp was that. It was a training camp. You came in, you got in shape, you had to get in football shape, and then you had to get in game shape. And so you wanted guys to play. Now they're so fearful, and you heard Raheem there, you're so fearful you're going to lose guys and not get them to the regular season, you're fearful to play guys. And then when you do play some guys like the rookie on the defensive end, just wanted to get him some game experience, you can simulate all you want to in practice. And all these joint practices, which was great to be with Miami, and they're still at practice speed. The game is different. So when you ramp it up to game speed, you want them to be able to feel that. And that's what a lot of the young players or guys coming back from injury, you'd like to get them back up to speed. Kevin King, some guys like that. But you are in shark-infested waters. There's something can happen. And unfortunately for the Falcons, a couple of guys went down. But as far as when did it kind of change, I think there's a difference of opinion across the board there, Taylor. We could probably find, Kirk Cousins said he'd love to play in the preseason. There's no way Kirk Cousins is even going to get close. The only thing he's going to be is he's going to be in the building. He will not, and that's me talking. That's not Raheem saying that. It's not anybody saying it but me. But there's a fear that you can't get to the regular season with your players, and that's number one. How much mentally do you go through, okay, I lost a guy in a regular season game.
Yeah.
I lost a guy in a preseason game. So you can see the weight of those and how much that would struggle with. And you saw Raheem was struggling with it as well.
Yeah, and you bring up Kirk Cousins and possibly not seeing him at all this preseason. And I wouldn't, I'm not a betting woman by any means, but I don't know if we would see him in the preseason. If we did, it would probably be in that third week right before regular season starts. But as week 1, 2, and 3 in the preseason kind of warm up, you kind of normally see the guys that play more and more time bring and come onto the field a little bit more. So obviously Miami, not a ton of those starters, 2 guys, guys that are on the twos, but you might see that in this Baltimore Ravens game coming up this weekend. For the fans at home that might not know as many names on this team, who should they be watching in this Baltimore Ravens preseason game this weekend?
Yeah, I would look, Taylor, at a couple players. And again, we don't know. There was 22 players, as you mentioned, that didn't play in this game for the Falcons. So are some of those guys going to play in this game? We don't know that. But who are some of the guys that potentially slide in this spot? We talked about, I mentioned Dane Cruikshank. He's a guy that's going to contribute both on special teams and on defense, especially with the safety injury. Where does that fall? Look for Abernathy, also a safety, a guy that potentially he's contributing on special teams as well. So you're almost looking for crossover guys that you see are playing a core of there's 4 special teams, core special teams: punt return, kickoff coverage, punt coverage. Those are your 4 core special teams. If you see guys playing a lot on those and they're playing in multiple spots on those are the guys to watch for. But D'Angelo Malone is a guy that jumps off the page at me because of the injury that we had to Braylon Trice. D'Angelo Malone was a prolific pass rusher in college. He hasn't necessarily been given the opportunities potentially to be that guy. I think this system fits who he is a little bit more as an outside linebacker. Look for him to get significant playing time in this game, and can he affect the pass rush? Arnold Ebikete's got to continue to come on. Arnold played in this last game. I think they're still trying. Those guys all played, those edge guys.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about Trice getting injured, but, you know, Lorenzo Carter was out there and Arnold Ebikete. Those guys are starters. Expect those guys to play because they're still trying to figure out what that matchup is coming off the edge.
Yeah, I think Donovan Mutin as well. You bring up the linebackers,
Yeah.
Donovan Mutin. I think J.D. Bertrand as well. You're going to start to see with J.D. bringing the calmness back to the game for him. Obviously, that first game, you're a rookie. You don't know what to expect. The NFL, it's a totally different game than college football. I don't care if you did go to Notre Dame and you were the best player on the team. Like, there's a lot that goes into an NFL game, and I think to watch J.D. and the other rookies find their calmness in the game and kind of find their footing on the field, it will be huge. And I think you're going to start to see that in this game too.
Well, and I can tell you this, Taylor, from experience, once you've played in a game, and again, game and practice are different. Once you've played in a game, things begin to slow down for you a little bit. You understand how the game's going to play. Now, different games can go different ways, but still, you know the game speed. You confirm that, yeah, I belong at this level. So there is some of that for younger players like JD, as you're talking about. He's playing like his head's on fire, you know. But that's fine as a linebacker, but I also got to be able to think through some things. I can't get screwed up on my keys. Got to do those things will slow down a little bit because he's played.
Yeah, all right. So Baltimore Ravens will be the second preseason game this weekend for the Falcons. It's going to be on Saturday the 17th at 12 p.m. Probably won't be seeing Kirk Cousins and Lamar Jackson under center this week, but you'll be on the call.
I'll be here. I'll be there.
He'll be there. I'll be here in Atlanta. So we will see you guys next week for week 4 of training camp and week 3 of preseason. That one's going to be at home. So have a good night.